right. Good morning or good afternoon, rather, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this exciting panel on amplifying community voices of Black joy and healing. The story of Collective STL featuring the one and only Dr. Terry Harris. I am excited to be with you all. My name is Mike Jones. I use he, him pronouns, and I serve as the Director of Community Engagement and Co-Curricular Education at the Department of Biology and Biomedical Sciences. And so I promise you, you are in for a treat tonight. But before we get started, I want to honor our Native, Indigenous, American Indians, and First Nations people with our land acknowledgement, which is our practice here at WashU School of Medicine. And we will begin by acknowledging that Washington University in St. Louis is located on the ancestral lands of the Osage Nation, the Missouri, Illinois Confederacy, and many other tribes who were removed unjustly, and that we are the beneficiaries of that removal. We honor them as we live, as we work, and as we study at Washington University, the School of Medicine. And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce Dr. Terry Harris and provide a brief bio before turning it over to him. Dr. Terry Harris, is one of the St. Louis region's most innovative educators working to build equity and well-being among students and African-American community. The executive director of student services in the Rockwood School District, Dr. Harris' work is grounded in the guiding question of how are the children? His goal is to one day be able to answer this question in the traditional greeting with the resounding response, the children are well. Dr. Harris focuses on well-being. As an educator, he works to ensure student voices is encouraged and amplified. Harris's works to link student voice with student action so that the youth are aware that they have power to change the world that they live in for the better. Dr. Harris works on issues that affect the well-being of African-American adults because children cannot be well if the adults around them are not well. To address these health disparities, Dr. Harris has co-founded the Collective STL, a nonprofit dedicated to bringing free yoga and wellness programs to African-American communities within St. Louis. He has also created a child center space for yoga through Yoga for the Youth program. Dr. Harris has been honored as an outstanding educator of the year by the St. Louis Association of Public Secondary Principals. He has established the St. Louis Restorative Practice Academy for Educators and is the eHub STL Fellow for Education, Entrepreneurship. As a proud graduate of Lafayette High School, Dr. Harris holds degrees respectively from Missouri State, Lindenwood, and Maryville University, where he earned his doctorate degree in education and educational administration. So without further ado, we present Dr. Terry Harris.
Nice, man. You're reading that. I really feel like I want to meet that brother. Like, this makes me, smile. I'm really happy and excited to be here today with you all to talk about something that I care about more than anything, which is the Collective STL. I have worked in education for the last 18, 20 years. And the Collective is probably, the thing that I'm really proud of in terms of this next journey in life. And it's really what we say is a love story. And it's this love story that is really about the people in St. Louis. And so I'm happy to be here. And so I know I can't see faces, but we will do some participating. Hopefully you can, do this and maybe share your thoughts a little bit later, but I really want to I want this to be a very much an experience at the Collective and what we typically would do if we were at the Collective. So let me try to get this presentation together. Slideshow. I don't know why. Yeah, there it is. All right, so here we go. The Collective STL. And I just want to say, I want to start with this, that we are all the Collective STL. We're all the collective. If you're in St. Louis, you care about St. Louis, then we're all the Collective STL. If you care about Black issues, we are the Collective STL. If you want to see our city thrive, then you're part of the Collective STL. If you want to amplify voices, then you're the Collective STL. So we're all the Collective STL. It's going to take all of us to ensure that Black people, brown babies, Black babies are doing well in this city. And so thank you for being a part of this journey with us. And so we start with our breath. So one of the things about the collective, you know, obviously we're focusing on health and well-being of the Black people in the city of St. Louis, and we do this through our yoga. And so one of the things that happens often is people will say, hey man, I really love what you guys are doing, but I don't do yoga. I don't know how to do yoga. And so at the Collective STL, what we say is that if you can breathe, then you can do yoga. So we breathe because we must breathe for ourselves, deeply, fully, quietly, loudly, breathe down to our roots, breathe to fuel our rising. On behalf of those who can no longer breathe, we must breathe, we must breathe, we must breathe because we can. If you can breathe, then you can do yoga. And because you breathe, you're part of the Collective STL family. And so everything that we do is really focusing on the breath and how to mindfully quiet, you know, those thoughts and just to be in space and be in total relaxation. As we move forward today, I'm going to tell you some things, and some of this may hit you in a way that it could be very traumatic. And I just ask and hope that you take care of yourself the way that you need to. But James Baldwin said, if I love you, I have to make you aware of the things that you do not see. If I love you, I have to make you aware of the things that you do not see. And because everything that we're talking about with the collective is such a love story, we have to tell the truth about what's happening and what's going on in the city of St. Louis. And to do that, we have to make sure that we're on the same page. We have to make sure that we're entering this space collectively and together. So together we create brave space, because there's no such thing as a safe space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars, and we all have caused wounds. In this space, we seek to turn down the volume of the outside world. We amplify voices that fight to be heard elsewhere. We call each other to more truth and love. We have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. We will not be perfect today in this next 30, 45 minutes in this space. However, this space will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be, but it will be our brave space together, and we will work in it side by side. So for the next 30 minutes, I'm just asking you to enter this conversation with me from a brave space lens and not a safe space lens. So let's take a moment just to think about where you are as a participant, what you're feeling, what you're thinking. Like, just noticing your breath. I told you what we want to make sure that today is an experience. So noticing your breath, noticing where you're coming, what's going on, feeling, your shoulders, your legs. How do you feel? What's going on in your body right now? Just paying attention on purpose. So let's take about 15 seconds. Notice the emotional wheel that was created by Gloria Wilcox in 1982. What are you feeling right now in this moment? And you don't have to ask why. You don't have to examine it. You just notice what you're feeling and how you're feeling. When we started the collective, we used to use this document all the time, just to allow for people to be able to express how they're feeling. When you're a Black person in the city of St. Louis and some of these other places, you don't really get to express how you feel. And so what we wanted to do is create a space where individuals were free to express all of their feelings, no matter what, no judgment. So how do you feel? Amplifying voices is giving people the ability, the opportunity, the space to be able to feel. I don't necessarily say permission to feel, because it's not as permission seems powerful and oppressive, but it's giving space for people to feel? How do you feel in this moment? So I want to start by this before I introduce the collective in this video. The collective really started with an imagination. The imagination is the playground of creativity, innovation, and change. And so the imagination that we had was very simple. How do we reimagine Black joy? I'm going to talk about some things today that is very depressing and all these different things, but at the same time, we know that there is a space for Black people to be happy and smile. How do we reimagine the plight of Black people to the extent that it's joyful, it's happy, it's playful? And from that question, right, imagination is the playground of creativity, innovation, and change. From the question of imagining Black joy and Black people in the future, what we were able to create and innovate and hopefully add to change was the collective. And here's the story of the collective. So the Collective STL is truly a love story. It's a love story in the making. The concept is to bring yoga wellness, healing to Black people in North St. Louis. We are the only Black-owned yoga studio in North St. Louis dedicated to helping individuals bring healing and peace to their souls. Our concept is a donation-based model, which means that people pay what they feel like they can pay. We've been around for 2 years, so this model is working. Our concept and our belief is if we're really going to bring yoga and healing to people, we have to change the financial model. We have to change how yoga is offered. We have to change the space and the feel of yoga. And so collectively, our role is to ensure that all the people are well, that people are thriving, that people are surviving, that people feel safe in their bodies, that people feel comfortable in their skin, and that people can just truly be their true selves. The Collective STL is truly a love story in the making. So that's the collective. And so because we're about love, I want you to maybe take a screenshot of this, maybe take a picture with your phone. This is from an organization out of California. It's called BEAM, Black Emotional and Mental Health Collective. They're doing some amazing work, and they often have these prompts. And so we use this in our space all the time. And typically people don't write the prompts. We ask them to think about it. But today, what I want you to do, I want you to take a screenshot of this, and I want you to, at some point today, ask yourself one of these questions, right? I love my blank. I feel most alive when blank. I feel most centered when I feel most connected to my body when I am grateful for. I feel most loved when I feel most supported when. So not all of these, maybe you can take one a day for the next, 7 days, 8 days. But I want you to pick one that really stands out to you and complete that prompt. Typically when we're using this at the collective, we often talk about the love. I love because it's really hard for people to start to appreciate who they are. And so because the collective is a love story, we want to start to get people to really understand how to really appreciate all of who they are and claim that as love. So let me break down some of the things that was in the video. So the Collective STL is a donation-based yoga studio. And I want to stress the donation, because what we know, when I was in college, Econ 101, we learned there is no such thing as a free lunch. So nothing is free. I mean, this year, it's our 6th year at the collective. My wife and I and 2 other partners, Alonzo and Mel, we started this organization, and there were days where we were, cleaning the floors and, painting, moving furniture, spending hundreds of dollars out of our own pockets to make sure this happened. And we'll have 2 or 3 people to show up. The last class that we had, we probably had 40 people in the class. And that's typically, where we are now. We're averaging 20 to 40, depending on which class, but people are coming. Events. We just had an event at the Missouri History Museum. We probably had 200 people over the course of 2 days. So people are getting the buzz and understanding what's happening. But before we were doing all this work, and it wasn't free, it was the love of the mission. We love the mission statement, which is to bring health and wellness to Black people in the city of St. Louis, and we're committed to that by all means, which got us here. So it's not a free yoga class. It's a donation-based yoga class, and the donations are not just financial donations. So one of the things that I mentioned in the video was that we have to think about yoga differently. If I were to ask any of you to take a second to think about a yoga studio that you have been to, or just your thoughts about yoga, and I ask, what's the average cost of yoga in the city of St. Louis, period? St. Louis City, St. Louis County, the region, and the average cost is anywhere between $12 to $15. Right? Most people don't have an extra $12 to $15 to spend, to go to have fun at yoga, or to go breathe, or go all this craziness that Terry is talking about, right? And we understand that, but we also understand that the breath is really important. We also understand that many diseases and issues starts with stress. And we also know that we can combat stress. We can literally lower stress through certain modalities of healing, yoga being one of them. And so if we really care about that, then how can we create this space that is not causing more stress financially for someone to participate? And so our model is a donation-based model. We're the only probably a yoga studio, definitely in Missouri, but probably the only yoga studio in the world right now that has this donation-based model. And I want to explain this model. So some people give us financial support. Here's $100, here's $25 per class, here's $1 per class, 50 cents. And then some people bring water. Right? Every single class, we offer water to our people, or we have snacks at the end of class, and people bring water, people bring snacks. People may say, hey, Terry, I can make a flyer for this event for you for free, or I'm going to go and do it. So the collective is the community of people who are making sure that we're thriving and that we're doing well. So we're very appreciative of that. So that's the business model. We really care about our space. So hopefully those who have been there, or those who want to come, please come and take a look at the space. The space is warm and welcoming. Everyone is welcome at this collective, and you feel like family. We often get this question from our white brothers and sisters, or non-Black brothers and sisters, and they may say things like, hey, I noticed that the collective is a space for, it's not a space, it's focused on the health and well-being of Black people, but can white people attend? Let me first start by saying, there's probably a non-Black person in every one of our classes every single day, right? That's one. Two, what we say is, we are really, Toni Morrison, we're really trying to suspend that white gaze. And so what we say, as a white person, if you care about the health and well-being of Black people in the city of St. Louis, then you're welcome. Our mission statement doesn't say that this is a space for Black people only, period. Our mission statement is, we are concerned with the health and well-being of Black people in the city of St. Louis. Therefore, anyone who's concerned with that and is working to amplify voices and do the things that they need to do to make sure that Black people in the city of St. Louis are well, then you are welcome. Stephen Biko says that Blackness is a state of consciousness. I would also say that humanity is a state of consciousness. And so if you're working and you care about those issues, then by all means, come to one of our classes. So space, community. At the end of every class, I mentioned this before, we always have something to drink, something to eat. When I say drink, like a juice or something like that, but we always have this fruit, or, we partner with a local Black gardener, and he brings in, different vegetables, and we pass those things out, and we just commune. We ask about kids, we ask about work, we ask about what's going on in each other's lives. We hug and we talk and we laugh, right? And then it's the yoga. So the collective is space, making sure the space feel warm and welcoming. Community, how do we build community, make sure people feel like they belong here? And then we get to the actual yoga. The fact that Mike did the land recognition is such a beautiful thing, because to be seen is to be loved. And what we know is there are times where we go into a yoga studio and people do not see us. They don't even acknowledge or recognize us. I cannot stand if I'm walking in Forest Park, or if I'm somewhere and I walk past another human being and that person doesn't acknowledge me, or I try to acknowledge that person, they just kind of walk away. Like, we acknowledge your humanity in the space at the Collective. I'm sorry I got onto this tangent, but those are the 3 areas. And I'm going to speed through these next to a couple of slides. So I already mentioned this. The Collective STL is a vibrant group of Black yoga and wellness instructors fully committed to improving the health and well-being of Black people in the city of St. Louis. Our approach is to offer donation-based yoga classes, mindfulness trainings, and self-care workshops to the community. We have our own yoga studio. We are in 12 school districts, over the course of the year. We are now partnering with BJC and working in the St. Louis County Library. So we offer classes there. And, we're partnering with the wonderful Washington University, and we've done this program for maybe the last 2 or 3 years. So definitely appreciate you guys bringing us in to talk and do yoga practices as part of the MLK celebration. But people are hearing about who we are, and we're doing our thing. Space Community Yoga, talking about that. And we always end by saying Ubuntu, and we structure our programming from this model. So Ubuntu is a South African philosophy. It means I am because you are because I am. My existence is caught up in your existence. I only exist because you exist. What you feel and what you go through, I go through. And this is really important for us, because there are, especially anyone who knows the city of St. Louis, there are people who live in certain neighborhoods and certain areas, and they're not concerned with what's happening in the city of St. Louis, especially North St. Louis. And if you think that that's not going to impact you, then think again, because businesses are not coming to the city of St. Louis if school systems are not great, if there's no grocery stores, or if there are no affordable housing. And so when we start to push people to the curb and push people aside, then ultimately it's going to impact all of us. So when those Black people in North St. Louis, and we're in Old North St. Louis, when they're not doing well, we are not doing well. It doesn't matter if you're in Clayton, Ladue, or whatever. We have to understand that the principle and the philosophy of Ubuntu is a humanity, universal, spiritual, godly principle that it impacts all of us. And we believe that, and we live with that. So at the end of every class, we bow and we say Ubuntu, and people feel that. Once one of our individuals are struggling with something, it impacts all of us. So as a community, we come together and figure out what we need to do to help to ensure that those individuals are well. And here are some things that are creating and causing stress that that makes people quote unquote not well. Alice Walker said, healing begins where the womb was made. So what are the wombs that we're dealing with and we're talking about in the city of St. Louis? 12% of African-Americans living in concentrated poverty versus 1% of whites in the city. Concentrated poverty, defined as 40% of families or more in a neighborhood living at or below federal poverty level. 12% in the city of St. Louis. If you live in area code 63105 compared to where our studio is, which is 63106, it's more like a 20% or 20-year age difference in terms of your life expectancy. And that's simply based on zip code. This actually came from one of your former professors at WashU. So most of you are probably very familiar with Jason's work. But this is a problem, and we have to be concerned with that. Simply by living in a different zip code, you're living longer. These are the issues and the stresses that our people in the city of St. Louis that are coming to our studio, that they are coming with, that we as yoga people have to hold for them. Mass incarceration. We have tons of people who are coming to our studio that are either fighting the prison industrial complex system by protesting, by actively being engaged, or they're individuals who have been impacted by this system. We have people who are dealing with toxic stress, especially young people. We're seeing more and more young people who are dealing with this toxic stress. St. Louis Post just did an article the other day, and the percent of kids that are actually going to school, it's especially in some of our Black neighborhoods and Black school districts, it's sad. Right? It's hurtful, like what's happening to these young people where they are not able to get themselves up to go to school. What is the school system doing to try to help make sure that we're taking care of the social and emotional well-being of these students? And because those parents are really struggling with that. These parents are also coming to our yoga studio looking for help. Food access is a big deal in St. Louis. And I know there are a lot of people who are fighting and working on this, but we have food access issues, kids being killed. Again, police and gun violence. The schools in St. Louis are more segregated now than they have been since prior to Brown versus Board of Education. And this is not just in St. Louis. We're seeing this around the region, but it's definitely in St. Louis. All of these stresses and all of these wounds that have been created are the wounds that we are dealing with. These are the wounds that our people are coming into a yoga class with. And so I want to bring up these things because I want to be very intentional about this. This is just talking about the school suspension. So if you are a Black kid with a Black male with a disability, you're almost 25% more likely to be suspended from school than if you are a white female without a disability, right? These are the stresses that our people, food, their children, housing, mass incarceration, policing, education. These are the stresses that our people are coming to our studio with on a daily basis. How do we hold space? Remember the poem that we read earlier. What we're trying to create at the collective is a brave space, a space where people can come with all the wounds that have been inflicted upon them and know that people are going to hold space for you, to get you through it, to breathe through it, give you tools, but also sit and stand next to you. I will come back, I will end on this video. Let me just quickly go through this. So this is my call to action. I'm 1 minute over, Michael, but because you spent so long on that introduction, I feel like you owe me 4 minutes. So I'm just gonna put that out there. Our call to action today for you on this call is 4 kinds of courage. And I'm just asking, like, how courageous are you? And in which way are you showing your courage as a person participating in this call, specifically to amplify Black and brown voices in the city of St. Louis? So there are 4 types of courage. Physical courage. The courage enables us to use our bodies to go bravely into the fray. So for some of us, it's, you're out in the streets and you're protesting, and you're gonna get yourself out there and directly be in the streets at a march. You probably were at the MLK march, but you're out there physically to show that level of courage for Black and brown babies or Black and brown people in the city of St. Louis. The second type of march is what we call, or courage is what we call moral courage. It's about the right and the wrongs, taking the risk to speak the truth to power, to demand change and face the consequences. I feel like this call that you've had over the last couple of years is moral courage. You're actually allowing for individuals to come and speak truth to power, to amplify voices. Then we get to social courage. We exhibit social courage when we risk being vulnerable for the sake of relating to others with authentic presence. And then finally, creative courage. And I would say that we in the collective space probably go through all of these, but really the courage that we're trying to amplify is what we're calling this creative courage, which we're coming up with creative solutions. Our creative solution is our breath, our movement, our bodies, our communities. And we look at yoga as this very creative space. And so the question that you have to ask yourself, our call to action for you as a member of the collective, is which courage are you showing up as on a daily basis to amplify Black voices and brown voices in the city of St. Louis? And it's okay if you don't know, but it's not okay if we're not figuring out how we're going to be courageous for these voices. I was just thinking about a message that King mentioned the other day, and actually it wasn't King, it was Desmond Tutu, and he said, there is no ability to stay in the middle. You can't stay neutral, right? So if we're going to collectively make sure that Black people in the city of St. Louis are well, it's going to take courage. And there are 4 different levels of courage that we can take. And I'm simply asking 1, 2, 3, or 36 of you all to decide which courage you're going to take to make sure that Black voices and Black people are well. And when you do that, we get to feel good about knowing that because of the courage that we take, the Black people that are in the future will be well. So what we know for sure is that there are Black people in the future. The question is, the Black people in the future, are they happy, thriving, flourishing? or they are still dealing with poverty and all the other things that I just mentioned before. The Collective STL is a love story. It's a love story in the making, right? Imagination is the playground of creativity, innovation, and change. The Black people in the future, from the standpoint of the view of the collective, are happy Black people doing well, and all of the voices are amplified. So I'm going to show this quick video and then we'll take questions.
So I came to the collective shortly after my dad passed, as a resource and tool to just be with people and like be able to heal my body and like just my mind and spirit. And I came in really just looking for, I didn't know what, but the first experience that I had, an encounter I had with Erica and Terry and Alonzo, was just warmth and just authentic Black community. And it really gave me a piece of, or a sense of peace and a sense of just like togetherness. You're welcome here. All people are welcome here. And so practicing with here, I sometimes forget that we're practicing yoga, honestly, because I feel like it's really just a community. Like we're just here, we're loving each other. It's such an authentic and genuine like spirit here. Every time I come here, I feel like such like a weight lifted off my shoulders. And so I think practicing is like practicing is like a secondary to me, honestly, to the community piece and to them really just building a space, a safe space for Blacks to come together, to be totally themselves, be authentic, to be loved on and cared for. And then, of course, yoga and the breathing and stretching, all that is like a secondary added piece, but honestly, it doesn't feel primary when I come. I'm not always inside of my head, inside of myself. And because of that, I feel like I don't always relate to my body and myself and my mind. Like I'm so output, like always like processing outwardly. And I feel like this practice really gives me opportunity to center myself, to talk to myself, to be with myself in a way that can be uncomfortable sometimes because I'm not used to it, but also healing and therapeutic for me. And so I think because of the practice, I'm able to really be more introspective, really, I feel like learn who I am, what and kind of the way that I process things, the root causes of a lot of things that are just living in my like body and my mind and my spirit that I hadn't thought about before. And so I think that that's helped me with my relationships with people, family, friends. It's helped me to really slow down, breathe, like listen to myself, those things that sometimes are natural to some other people that haven't been for me historically, but I've learned to do that through the collective, so.
Cool. All right, and Mike, we're gonna end with, let's end with our collective breath. So at the collective, at the end of class, we always end with what we call our collective breath. So if you are able, you can sit up straight in your chair, on your floor, on your couch, wherever you are. Make sure your feet are planted on the floor, that you can feel your feet, that you can feel your body. Just take a regular breath and just be with yourself. Just notice how you feel compared to the conversation starting to how you feel now. And at the collective, we end with collective breathing. So it looks like this. Let's all inhale, bring our hands above our heads. Our palms are going to touch. Exhale, bring your hands down to your side. Just one breath. Nice. Inhale, bring your hands all the way up. Your palms touch. Exhale, bring your hands all the way down to your side. Last breath, we call this the collective breath, the biggest inhale, exhale of the day. Big inhale, palms are going to touch, and then open mouth exhale. Bring your hands down to heart center. Remember, I mentioned Ubuntu, so we bow and we say Ubuntu, which is I am because you are because I am. Thank you. And that's it.
Wow. Terry, you never fail to impress me, man. You're truly a gift to our St. Louis region. Thank you so much for offering up this amazing talk today. And so we do want to offer up, this is, as Terry mentioned before, We want to make this as collective as possible in terms of, I know some of you may have some questions, and we invite you to ask those questions in the chat. And I don't know if we probably can't come off a screen so we can see face to face, but if you have some questions, some comments, let us know in the chat. We have about 10 minutes of Q&A. And so we welcome you to offer up those questions in the chat as people come. I see Jennifer she commented about the moral, social, and creative courage, which also stuck out to me. And so as those questions are coming, my question for you, Terry, we have a group at Washington University who's a representative of different levels of engagement with this work. And so where does one start? Where after we leave this space, where does one start maybe with developing this moral, social, and creative courage? Can you speak a little bit about that as the questions start to come in the chat?
Yeah, definitely. I really appreciate that. That's one of the questions that we get all the time. Where do you start? I think that for us, where we start is exactly where you guys started here, right? So you started with a land acknowledgement, right? We have to start with an acknowledgement of those individuals who are not in the room, and ask ourselves why they're not in the room, or those individuals who are in the room and we are not amplifying those voices. We have to sit and listen. You know, one of the things that was really interesting to me, one of the things that is really interesting to me is that sometimes we do this thing where it's like, okay, where do we start? Where do we start? And then you say, like, talk to the people. And then you talk to the people and then you do something opposite. There was this guy who did a TED talk. He's Italian. He said he took a group of Italian students to Africa and they were going to like help save these starving Africans. So they go and they plant these tomatoes, these big tomatoes and all this stuff. And the African people are just looking at them. And they're looking at them and it's like, it's almost time to pick the tomatoes, right? They're huge, they're ripe, and they're so excited. They get up the next day to pick these tomatoes and all the tomatoes are gone. So the guy goes to the Africans and he was like, what happened to the tomatoes? The African said, all the hippos ate the tomatoes. And the guy said, well, why didn't you tell us that? And the African said, because you didn't ask. It's not about the answers. I really believe that most people would probably tell you at least the start of what they are in need of. We just have to simply listen. Sometimes we have this whole thing of, right, like we know what we want to do and we're trying to sell it to the people. Right? It's not about that. Who are the people that are not in the room that we need to get in the room, that we need to sit with and just listen? And it's not about doing everything that they are asking you to do. It's listening and reflecting on that and then coming up with a plan collectively together. We had so many thoughts about the collective. We're going to do all these different things. But people said, no, we don't want to do that. We really don't want to do that. We just want to do the yoga piece. And you have to be able to swallow, you know, what you thought that you were going to do and be okay with it. So start by listening. Can we have at WashU a restorative listening circle? Mm-hmm. I'm a restorative person. I believe in it whole through and through. I will gladly give up my time to do it with you. Can we have a restorative listening circle, a restorative healing circle, or just a restorative circle, and let people get their voices in the room and talk about certain things, and let's see what comes from there. We don't have to have the answer. We just have to sit in love. Sit in love, right? Sit in love. That's what I got for you.
Yeah, so rich, man. And we have our diversity and equity inclusion team here. So I know Joel and Aaron are taking notes of this restorative listening circle. We got to get some dates on the calendar to make sure we bring you back for this. There are a couple questions in the chat. One from Kiana Howard and saying, can you give just an example of what social courage is?
Yeah, so social courage is really like the poem that we read. It's about being brave. So social courage so think about social in terms of people interacting, right? Social courage is about being in a space where, let me give you a perfect example of social courage. Social courage is 5 people apply for a job and it's down to the final 2 candidates. And you know that this female superintendent is absolutely the best, but because you're in a room full of men, everyone is like talking about these things where, you know, I just don't think that, you know, she was strong enough or she came off this way. Social courage is standing up and saying, hey, I want to pause for a second. I want to push back. You know, like I noticed that we're using certain words about this individual that we're not using for this man. And so I just want us to think about that. Social courage is, when I was in the school district that I was in, someone literally wrote their resume for the job that we had, and they were from St. Louis Public. And the person literally said, I don't think that this person is a good fit. And it's like social courage is like, hey, can we, we're asking for this, and this person has done this. Why wouldn't this person be a good fit? So social courage is the being vulnerable and interacting in social spaces to stand up for what's right.
Yeah, that's good. So
and the social courage is probably the social courage, I would tell you, is the courage that we have an opportunity to explore on a daily basis. We are put in situations where we're called to be socially courage daily, more than the other pieces. And social courage is the hardest courage, because social courage, because we're talking about social, we're talking about people. Social courage could also stop you from having friends, to not be invited in certain spaces. Right, that is it's probably the hardest courage that one can show, because it's so present. And it is there often. So
that's good. So social courage is, are you saying, is the hardest type of courage to sort of endure, depending on what space you're in? I do see we got one more question that's rich, but before we open up this question, I do want to acknowledge some of these individuals who've just made comments, and maybe these will encourage you as you continue to do the work. Kayla says she doesn't have a question, but she thanks you for creating the space where you and others can begin to do great work for our communities. Looking forward to joining your yoga session soon. Amy also commented that I would love to join a restorative listening circle. So I'm putting that on Joel and Aaron. We got to make that happen. But the next question is saying, after looking at the feeling spectrum, I feel thankful and nurturing, but I did not feel peaceful. Being thankful and nurturing does make me feel good. Does this mean that I am at peace but not realizing it?
No, you are at, I picked thankful and nurturing. You're at thankful and nurturing. That's just where you are. It doesn't have to, you don't have to be at peace. What do you feel? I feel thankful, I feel nurturing. You don't have to add anything else. That's just what you feel. And then when you get to a point where, I mean, do you feel like you're at peace? Because if you feel like you're at peace, then you're at peace. It's just a feeling, right? One of the things that we say at the Collective is be gentle with yourself. You're a child of the universe, no less than the trees and are the stars. And the crazy chaos of life, keep peace in your soul. But it's only when it's there. If peace is not in your soul, then whatever that feeling is, have it in your soul and notice it. You don't have to be at peace right now. You're at nurturing and you're at thankful. And hopefully, because you want to get at peace, you will be there. Be gentle with yourself.
Appreciate that. And I see a comment from Erin saying on social courage, she just led a upstander training. We must have this to change our culture. So she said social courage is necessary as well for our culture. And I see that we're right at time, but are there any more pressing questions from the group? Or if you don't have any pressing questions, I'll just encourage you to send your kudos to Dr. Terry Harris for joining us and taking time out of his busy schedule to share with us this afternoon. And as the questions come in, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Shanice Hinton, who will do the follow-up from here.
Hey, Shanice, before you go, can I just mention one thing? Hey, listen, the Collective is truly a love story. I'm proud of what we've built. Like I cannot express that enough. I would be honored to have any of you in our space to take a class. You know, we have an app. You can download our app. You can come to our class. You guys are all welcome. I think if you come to the class, you would definitely feel what we're trying to build. And I'm always encouraging people to come to the class. So it's a donation-based class. You either donate or you don't. but more importantly, your presence is welcome. So thank you so much.
You are welcome. And I may have missed it, but I've been doing my best to pay attention and totally be engaged. I got caught up in the feeling. And like, I just want to thank you, Dr. Harris, for just really requiring us to take up the space in the middle of our day, to think about our emotions, to think about our needs. I know we are all super hard workers here, and thinking of our own needs during the middle of the workday, like it always just gives me a little bit more juice to get through the rest of the day. So thank you for that. Do we have the dates of your classes and the times?
Yeah, so that if you download the app, but basically Monday through Thursday, 6:30 p.m. On Saturday, we have class at 9:30 in the morning, and then on Sunday, we have class at 1 o'clock. So pretty much 6:30 during the week, and on the weekends, 9:30 in the morning and 1 o'clock.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. I'm like, hold on, I may have missed it. Hopefully I did it, but thank you for giving us that. I just want to thank all the participants for being here today. Thank you, Dr. Harris. That was just, it was what I needed. I really appreciate that. And just partnering with us during all of the MLK events this week. I just want to take a second to ask all of our participants to fill out the evaluation and the link.